Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, Justin Smith there, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for Thursday's episode of The Process on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button below. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not to Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. Of course, I am going to be here every Tuesday and Thursday evening to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. We did miss Tuesday's show because I was traveling to the Mobile area to check out a couple of the Tide's targets in the 2022 and future recruiting classes. Also got an opportunity to check out the Crimson Tide's 4-star linebacker commit Robert Woodyard. I will have updates from that visit on today's show, but the main focus of today's show will be on a couple of guys who want to commit before their senior season begins. We see a lot of prospects who say, I want to make a decision before my senior season rolls in so I can focus on my senior year of high school football, playing with my teammates for one final season. I will talk about a couple of guys who Alabama is in the mix for, guys who want to make that decision before their senior season begins. But I also want to start today's show by talking about a couple of updates from my Tuesday trip. And the first prospect I want to talk about is Shemar James, the 4-star athlete out of Faith Academy in the Mobile area. He is currently verbally committed to the Florida Gators. He committed to the Gators last month over Alabama. The Tide and the Gators were listed in his top two before he were listed in his final two before he made that announcement. And at the moment, Alabama has no plans of backing off of James. He told me that they are still on him. They told him that they are not going to stop recruiting him until he signs. And when you take a look at what he brings to the table and what his frame looks like at the moment, standing at 6'2", possibly 6'3", weighing more than 200 pounds, he looks all of that. He looks to have that size. If you get an opportunity to see him in person and you look at what he brings to the table, it is no secret why Alabama is going to continue to push for him, trying to keep him inside of the state, trying to improve their linebacker class with this versatile athlete out of Faith Academy. So Shemar James is a name we are going to continue to talk about, although he is verbally committed to the Florida Gators at the moment. I also got an opportunity to catch up with the Crimson Tide's 4-star linebacker commit Robert Woodyard on Tuesday. Woodyard visited Alabama last month as well, camped at the University of Alabama. Said he had a great time. It was his second time meeting Nick Saban. He said it was an awesome opportunity to meet him for the second time. This was actually his first visit to the University of Alabama since he had committed to Alabama before the recruiting dead period was put in place because of COVID-19. So it was good for him to get back on campus, get an opportunity to camp. He said he is still feeling love from the program. He said that he feels that they love him and want the best for him. So Alabama still looks to have a solid hold on his commitment at the moment. He did take an official visit to Auburn last month as well, so he is still enjoying his recruitment a little bit as well. He does not have any visits lined up for the fall, but he does want to take a couple of trips to Tuscaloosa. So Robert Woodyard still looks solid to the Tide at the moment. He is currently the longest standing commit in the 2022 recruiting class. But as I said at the top of the show, on today's show, I want to focus on a couple of guys who could commit to the Crimson Tide next before their senior season begins. And the first guy I want to talk about is Baron Brown, the 4-star wide receiver out of Patterson High School in Nashville, Tennessee. Alabama offered him a couple of days after they defeated the Ohio State Buckeyes in the national championship game. Nick Saban and Alabama, I feel, immediately became the leader, or very shortly after became the leader for Baron Brown when they first offered, because they showed a lot of interest, showed a lot of love from that very point. Nick Saban even compared him to Devontae Smith because of his size, having that slim frame, a tough kid, actually plays on both sides of the football for Patterson High School, which is something that Devontae Smith did at Amite High School in Louisiana. So they have some similarities in terms of their frame, in terms of the toughness that they bring to the wide receiver position. Alabama had got an opportunity to host them for an official visit last month. That visit looks to have went really well for Brown and the Crimson Tide. He looks to announce a commitment before his senior season begins. He actually told me that when I saw him in action with the Elite Three out of Tennessee at the Southern Express 707 tournament in Alabama a couple of months ago. So I feel the Crimson Tide continue to be the leader for Brown heading into that upcoming decision. If he was to commit to Alabama soon, he will be the Crimson Tide's first wide receiver commit in the 2022 recruiting class. Tyler Booker is the next guy I want to talk about, the 4-star offensive lineman out of IMG Academy in Patterson, Florida. Got an opportunity to officially visit the University of Alabama last month. I think I've said this on the process a couple of times as well. I felt heading into the end of the recruiting dead period, heading into recruits finally getting an opportunity to visit schools after a 15-month dead period. I felt Alabama was the leader for Brooks, but I feel that schools like Florida and Georgia have closed that gap. I still feel Alabama is in a good position because of the relationship they have been able to develop with Tyler Booker, the respect he has for the program, also the fact that one of his closest friends and J.C. Latham currently attends the University of Alabama. He previously told me that he looked at Latham as a blood brother, so Tyler Booker is a guy I will continue to keep my eyes on as well. I have talked about him a lot over the last couple of weeks, and with him being one of the recruits who officially visited Tuscaloosa last month. And another prospect who officially visited Alabama last month, he's also a guy, he didn't officially visit Alabama last month. The next guy I'm going to talk about, the guy after him, but the next guy I'm going to talk about actually unofficially visited Alabama a couple of times to camp at the University of Alabama. That is Kobe Prentice, the 3-star wide receiver out of Calera High School in Calera, Alabama. Prentice recruitment has drastically changed over the last couple of weeks. He verbally committed to Maryland at the end of the month on June 30th. Less than 24 hours later, he received an offer from Alabama. He told me that once he received that offer from the Crimson Tide, he was chilling with his friends originally. He stepped away from the group, went outside, and he had to praise God because he has so much respect for that program. Grew up an Alabama fan. He said that he feels Alabama is wide receiver U. He just recently backed off his commitment to the Maryland Terrapins. He told me recently before he backed off that commitment that he was going to take his recruitment slow now that he had that offer from Alabama. But he is a prospect who the Crimson Tide really seemed to like, was really impressive at camp, ran at 4.38 40, so he's a guy with a lot of speed, standing at 5'10" and weighing approximately 170 pounds. He's going to be more of a slot wide receiver at the next level. So Kobe Prentice is a prospect I will keep a close eye on for the next couple of weeks as well. I feel Alabama's in a great position to land him. He has not officially announced a decision date or a decision timeline because he did say he was going to it's going to take things slowly from here on out, but I would definitely pay attention to Kobe Prentice out of Calera High School in the coming weeks. The last guy I want to talk about today is Dane Shore, the 3-star offensive lineman out of Georgia who officially visited Alabama last month. He officially visited the Crimson Tide the same week that the Crimson Tide hosted a long list of impressive official visitors, including the guy I talked about earlier in the show, Tyler Booker. Shore visited a couple of other programs, officially visited a couple of other programs last month as well. He took all 5 of his official visits, visiting programs like Tennessee, taking a visit to Texas A&M as well. So he had an opportunity to visit a lot of SEC schools. He has a lot of interest in Alabama. He has been high on the Crimson Tide for a couple of weeks, has been able to build a relationship with the Crimson Tide's offensive line coach Doug Marrone. Had talked to Nick Saban a couple of times before he took that official visit. He said that visit went really well. He said it was different getting an opportunity to meet the coaches in person versus calling them on phone calls and just talking to them via Zoom. He said it was really different getting the opportunity to see them in person, actually shake their hands, and just getting an opportunity to talk with them one-on-one as well. He said his biggest takeaway from that particular official visit was the feeling he got being on the campus of the University of Alabama. This was one of the 2 visits that Dan Shore actually took to the University of Alabama over the last couple of months. He was on the campus of the University of Alabama actually on April 17th for the Tide's A-Day game. Did not get an opportunity to talk with coaches because the recruiting dead period was in place, but he did get an opportunity to see some of campus then. And I think him taking a trip to Tuscaloosa on the Tide's A-Day game. I think that was really something that showed that he was high on the Crimson Tide as well. He will announce a commitment on July 31st. He actually has a commitment date set. I feel Alabama is in a great position with him. He did miss his entire junior season, so it is sort of a mystery in terms of some of the things he does bring to the table. He was really impressive as a sophomore in high school. I think once he plays his senior year in Georgia, I think we will get a better feel for where Shore stands in terms of the top offensive lineman in the 2022 recruiting class. But that is what I wanted to talk about on today's show. Wanted an opportunity to discuss a couple of guys who could commit to the Crimson Tide next. As always, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit that subscribe button below. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue as well. Then head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device, or to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, to download the Touchdown Alabama app. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.
Process.